Okay, we have a continuation of our slope rate of change, video 2. It's going to start on page 310. We're going to do a quick review on our slope. Remember, slope is positive. It's not going to cooperate now. There we go. Slope is positive when we read from left to right, and it is moving upward. Slope is negative when we read from left to right, and it is sloping downward. Okay? Positive and negative slopes. Not necessarily in your notes, but it is something that you're going to need to know. Okay, so we're going to pick up from where we left off yesterday, just real quick. real quick, Duke. When we talked about slope yesterday, or not slope, but rate of change, which is slope, we're going to find today, was the change in the what over the what. What do you remember, Josh? It's the change in the vertical, yes, over the, what else do you know? What else do you know, Lizzie? Over the horizontal, okay? So vertical over the horizontal. We're going to talk quickly about rising to the skies and the rate of change, or the slope. You're going to hear the terms rise and run. Remember, you must rise before you can run, okay? Before you can get up and run, before you can run from your desk, you need to rise out of your seats. So when you're looking at your notes, slope using a graph, we need to fill in that we must rise, and if you want to spell rise like this, because that's going to make a difference before you run. Okay? So when we look at the rate of change for rising before we run, it is the vertical over the horizontal, or the rise over the run. Okay? We're going to talk about how do we find the slope or rate of change. Okay? You know now that the rate of change is the slope. Let's talk about this. The vertical change, we just said, over the horizontal change, or the rise over the run. Okay? So here we go. The slope, the rise over the run. Here's my 2 points. There's one here, and there's one here. Let's count how much we need to rise. Notice, if I'm looking at my graph from left to right, it is slanting upward. Okay, so I'm starting here, and I'm going to rise until I get to where this one is. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I had to rise 3. Over how many did I have to run from here to here? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I rose 3, and I ran 5. So my slope, or my rate of change, is 3 over 5. Okay, let's look at this one. Here's a point, and here's a point. From here to here. I need to rise, or so remember, I'm looking at the graph from left to right. Notice it's slanting downward, so it's going to be negative. Time out for just a second. I'm going to show you at the end of this the 3 different ways that we can write a negative slope, and what I will most often do. Okay, so let's do rise over run. We're going to go down. We went down from here to here is 1. Down 1, that's negative 1. How far do I need to run? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So I went down 1, and then I went over 7. Do you see how we might have gotten? Let's just look at this. So my slope is negative 1, 7. I can write that. Negative out in front 1 over 7. I can write that like I did, negative in the numerator over 7, or I could write it 1 over negative 7. Most often you will see me write it this way. Occasionally this way. Rarely will I write it that way. Okay? This means we have a negative slope, so my line is going to slant downward. Let's look at a few more examples here together. Okay? Let me do this. Let's go over here and make sure you're with me. Okay? So let's go back here. We're finding the change in the y, and we're going to find the change in the x coordinates. So the ratio is the y change over the x change. And by change, I also mean difference. Okay? Now, let's practice finding the slope of lines 1, 2, and 3. Here are lines 1, 2, and 3, 4. We'll just look at these 3, or would you like to look at rate of change? I think I've already done this. Let's come out. Here's where we did this. We found exactly where they changed. Let's just take this real quick one more time. Notice, here's where they've changed. Here, 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 here. Okay? So you count. How many changes did I go from here? Ready? I rose 1, 2, 3, and I ran 1, 2. So my rate of change is 3 over 2. Okay? Again, we did the vertical versus the horizontal. We rose and then we ran. Let's look at lines 1, 2, and 3 right here. Okay? Line 1. Here is a point. Here is a point. The coordinates for this point are 0, 1, and this one is 3, 4. Okay? See if you can come up with some math, or we can count the rise, which is 1, 2, 3, over the run, which is 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 over 3, which simplifies to 1 over 1, or a slope of 1. Okay? Let's try this point. And let's go with one that's not marked. How about that point? This one is negative 3, 2. This one is 1, 4. Let's do our rise. 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 over 4 simplifies to 1 over 2. Okay, are you getting to see where I'm getting that? If I was trying to do some math, or difference means subtraction. Let's do one more. Here's one, and here's one. We have 2, 5, and we have 3, 1. Okay, I rise, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4 because I was going downward over 1, or my slope is negative 4. Okay? Rise over run. Okay, so we found the slope. We're going to look at the slope formula. Does anybody think they have it? I said that it was the difference, so we're going to be subtracting. What do you think we're going to subtract? Correct. Cassidy, a y minus a y. So then, Abby, what would we do next? Then an x minus an x. And we got that by, we're going to say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to talk you through that here as we look at some examples, finding just using points. Notice x, let me do that, x, y, x, y. This was my first one, so this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. So we looked at our formula, x1 or y2 minus y1. y2 was 5 minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is 9, minus x1, which is 3. 5 minus 7, negative 2. 9 minus 3, 6. Can I simplify that? Absolute. Negative 1 over 3. That is my slope. How about number 2? How would we set that up? At y2, which is 2, minus y1, which is 2, over x2, which is 7, minus x1, which is 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. 7 minus 1 is 6. We're going to come back to number 2 here in just a moment. I want to skip over to number 4. How would number 4 look if we set this up? Actually, I don't want to go to number 4. I'm going to go to number 6. How would number 6 look if I set this up? y2 minus y1. y2 is 5 minus y1, which is negative 5, over x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is negative 2. Here you go. Here's our formula. 5 minus negative 5 becomes plus. That becomes 10. 4 minus negative 2 becomes plus. That becomes 6. Can that be simplified? Absolutely. 2 will go into each of those. Right, Justin? So that becomes what, Justin? 5 over 3. And we can leave it as improper. It's best to leave your slope as an improper fraction. Okay? So we just covered, we did some practice ones together. I want us to look at one more thing, and that is horizontal lines and vertical lines. If you look at page 311 in your textbook, it talks about that. Horizontal lines, slope is going to be 0, because in a horizontal line, your y value does not change, which is what we had here in number 2. This was going to be a horizontal line because 0 divided by 6 is 0. A slope of 0, horizontal line. When you look at a vertical line means there's no change in the x. So if there's no change in the x, that means I have some number 6 over 0. Can I divide by 0? No. So this is undefined. It has an undefined. Make sure you know about horizontal and vertical lines, how to write a negative slope, and what direction a positive and negative slope will go. That concludes video.